Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. You've had a chance to look at the agenda. Are there any errors, omissions? If not, could I have a recommendation to approve the agenda? Brett Todd, seconded by Mike Ostrander. Agenda is approved. Any declarations of interest? None. There are no presentations or delegations. We've had a chance to look over the minutes. The meeting held September 24th, 2020. Again, any errors or omissions? Any recommendations? In that case, can we move to have the minutes? Oh, God. Approved? Sorry. Mike Ostrander, Brett Todd. Losing thought here. Anything in the communications and petitions?
You need to call the vote, though. You missed the vote the last time, but you can't do it twice in a row.
I'm sorry, which vote was that?
You didn't actually call for the vote. We just had the mover and the seconder.
Oh, okay, sorry. Could you rectify that for me, please? I'll call for the vote. Brett Todd, seconded by Mike Ostrander. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. Moving on to communications and petitions. Is there anything in there? What about the annual billing?
Stan Kimberly had a comment.
Sorry.
I was going to speak to the annual Poppy campaign, but we can do so after if you want to discuss the billing.
Are there any questions or concerns about the billing, the OPP billing? No?
Anything, if I could, Mr. Chair, anything from a staff perspective that was noted here, seems pretty standard, but anything was picked up by staff in terms of overall costs or any comment they'd like to make on it? Matt, you're muted.
There is a slight increase. It's less than 1%. And so it works out to less than $1,000 per month in terms of the increase. So we're happy from that perspective. And it fell in line with what the expectation was, as well as how the stats are moving because it's a 4 or 5 year sliding scale and the average of those. So it made sense from where we were looking. And then when you take a look at this year's stats, you can see that we're down a little bit in terms of service hours. And so that if that continues for the rest of the year, then it will flow into that billing calculation in the following year. So we're comfortable with what it is and have no concerns at this time.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just on that again, just as it obviously reviews the year itself. Anything from the inspector on that? I mean, it's just looking at this year, comments on it. Has it been quieter overall, just with with COVID and any other reasons? I mean, is that the trend that Mr. Armstrong pointed out? We'll see that probably through the end of the year.
Certainly, I think as the pandemic commenced, we saw the calls for service going down pretty much about 30%. And that was for the first couple of months. And then the summertime was starting to pick up again. But overall, our calls for service, I've noted, have been down.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
No, nothing. Just good to hear from Nancy about the calls for service. That just goes with everything else that's gone with pandemic. So,
okay. If there's nothing else, Kimberly, if you want to go on about the annual Poppy campaign, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, we did receive word from our local Legion branch that this year there's going to be they're pre-laying all the wreaths, and it's Legion volunteers and members who will be laying the wreaths. There's only a certain number of them, but we still can put in a donation for the same amount of the wreath that we typically do. It's $120, and all the names of donors will be read out during the service, but it's a different service this year due to COVID-19. Did we want to proceed then with the purchase of our standard wreath?
I think so. The other members?
I'd make a motion to that effect.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd second it.
Okay.
The motion would just read that the PSB approve the purchase of a Remembrance Day wreath for the local Prescott Legion branch at a cost of $120.
Okay. All those in favor? It's carried. Okay.
Just, Mr. Church, one comment, if I could ask on how they're laying the wreaths. I understand, it's virtual and private only, but I think both for PSB and for the town, is there a way we can set something up where with a photo of laying the wreath either privately or however it's done, so we can make sure that we represent that virtually, that we're laying the wreath again. And as always, I'm very happy to lay the wreath in the town's behalf. So if we could set something up there so we have some presence virtually, it'd be great.
Sure,
I
can.
As well.
Sorry. Well, if the mayor was going to be there, now, are you going to be there on behalf of the town? Are you part of that small group, or?
I don't know. That's why I haven't been approached. I think they're doing it internally, but we need to do something just to show municipal support there. So if we could arrange that with the Legion, and I would suggest that I can do the PSB wreath laying as well, but it's good to have someone else there too. So if there's a way we can do this in a pandemic proper way, but we have to have photos at least, whether we do them on our own somewhere or not.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, maybe it would just be a photo opportunity, and we could share that message out on our social media channels, because the letter I got said the branch volunteers will prelay all of the wreaths at the cenotaph prior to the remembrance service as per the directive of the Royal Canadian Legion Dominion and Ontario commands. But I can follow up with them.
If
Yeah,
you could, because I'd
please.
like to be a part of it if at all possible, just to represent the town.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you could follow up on that and then let us know when the best time would be.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's move on to the bylaw update. Sean?
No problem. Just a friendly reminder that parking permits for the winter months will be on sale again this year in our municipal lots where they're needed, because there is no parking overnight between November and April. Last year we sold 5 permits. We're hoping maybe this year we'll sell a few more. The month of October was the dog tag promotion month, and to date, one of the things we did when we were out walking is if we come across a person that has a thing to pick up after their dog and they have the dog on a leash and they have their tag, we give them a $5 Prescott Proud Dollar. We've so far, actually it said 50 and that's what it was then, but we're now up over $100 given away of Prescott Pride money. And we've also sold more than 20 more dog tags since we started. Also, one of the things that's happening is there's been more focus on the Center Street Pier to make sure that people aren't parking in that area because it's supposed to be for drop off and pick up only. So that's kind of where we're focusing right now.
Any questions?
I'm actually just curious about that drop off and pickup. We have signage to that effect there, because people have parked at that little point for years and years. I do it myself on occasion, but I've never noticed. I can understand it when the princess or something is here, but that's going to be awful difficult to keep people out of there, and we'll have some upset people if there anybody warned off. So I'm just curious the rationale for that, but that's more of a council discussion. But I wasn't aware of that.
Yep, so it was part of the discussion around making sure that it was going to be safe for both the when people are arriving at the dock and parking at the dock, as well as those that are boaters and the scuba divers. And so that did come to council, and the discussion is one of the safety measures. There is a sign, and it has been there for a year, that says pick up and drop off only. And so we did that to make sure that there wasn't any concerns around kind of car traffic and people accessing the area for activities.
Okay, that's in the winter time, and I don't know, maybe that's something we need to look at again. Then that is something that either I slipped my mind, Mike. I don't know if you remember that, but I honestly didn't catch that, and that is a common place for people to sit, especially now with COVID, because people are taking their lunches down there, and the other parking lot's filled up a lot of the time for Riverview Vantage, anyways.
Yeah, I've noticed the traffic dropping off in the last month, but you're right about the lunch hours and that there's still people, a steady group going down there. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to know just where that's headed. So.
And Sean mentioned Center Street, right? I've got the right location on this.
Yeah, it's the place where the boat parks. Apparently, there was an issue a week or two ago when the boat parked there. The people didn't want to get out of the way for the buses to pick people up and let them off, and
Okay.
so.
Well, it's interesting it would happen at this time of year. You'd think that'd be more in June, July, August type thing. Anyway, interesting.
Anything else? No, then let's move on to the police services report for September 2020. Nancy?
Okay, so we're going to start through with the violent crimes, and we'll take a look at September, what occurred there. So we had one sexual assault that has been cleared by a charge. We had one assault that was a domestic, also cleared by charge. And we had two crimes against persons, and they were harassment type of investigations. So if you look at year to date, what's happening with our violent crimes is we have an overall reduction of 28.4%. Which is quite a significant change. And I think we spoke quickly about sort of the changes with the pandemic and our calls for service going down. So that may be what you're seeing there in terms of a reduction. As far as the property crimes go, in the month of September, we had one theft over, we had 4 theft unders, and they were gas drive-off type incidents. And we had 2 frauds and 2 mischiefs. And if you look at our year to date from September of 19 to September of 2020, we have an overall reduction of 20.1% overall, which is quite significant, I think. Our drug crimes were up 250% in change year to date. We have 5 possession charges over 4 of last year and 8 trafficking in 2020 and 1 importation and production charge. So I think we had at the last meeting, we had a kind of a good understanding from our detective sergeant, JP Perron, about sort of the state of the nation, what's going on with the illicit drug world. So certainly that is attributed to what's going on with their unit. And then the next page, we focus on the clearance rate, the violent crime, property crime, and drug crime. And overall, you can see we have a 9.1% reduction. But our violent crimes year to date is sitting at 70.7%, which is a good number. Our property crime is sitting at a 23.5% clearance rate, which is above the provincial average of 21.1. And our drug crime is sitting at 64.3. So overall, we have a 42.4% total violent property and drug crime clearance rate. So I'm not going to go through the calls for service billing summary report unless anyone has a specific question about any of the calls.
Just a really quick comment, just on things like Mental Health Act issues and so forth. Like, it looks like everything is down there, and that's from last year. And it's great, but it's also surprising because we've still got a long way to go, of course, as we get into the winter and we lock down a little more, which I think is almost unavoidable now. That's good news, because obviously there's a lot of stressors in society right now that are being seen in these sorts of incidents, and that's good to see that the numbers are down across the board here from last year.
Right.
Those are some pretty key worrisome areas right now as we move into the winter, and a lot of isolation and so forth. I think it's going to be happening again.
For sure. We also do have one of our mental health nurses works with one of our officers on a biweekly basis. So what they do when they get together is they sort of look at our prolific persons that are struggling in the community, and they pay some attention to them. They have visits, making sure they're connected to services. So that's certainly something that's on our radar, and moving forward, it's something that we hope to continue and have more of. So that's certainly a very positive step in the right direction.
Absolutely. That's good to know. I actually had the tour of the new BGH last week, and that was a discussion and part of the tour with a couple of us, just with regards to the new facility there for mental health services, which is greatly improved, and the interaction with the team that's out there. And we just a reminder, we do have some excellent services and support there for people that are most at risk. There are problems with the system overall, as we all know, in that regard, but it does seem like there are some good support systems here.
I agree. And if we look at our final page, we had no public complaints in the month of September. In our intelligence-led policing crime abatement strategy, we have 12 offenders in the program. 2 of them were charged. We had 4 charges laid and 2 checks were completed. And our daily activity reports, at total hours, we had 126 patrol hours in the month of September, 7.75 marine patrol hours, and 15 hours of foot patrol. And also during the month of September, we had a number of targeted releases in the media. And we also had a September long weekend, a traffic initiative where our members were out targeting aggressive drivers, which resulted in the laying of 119 provincial offense notices. And that was for speeding, stunt driving, seatbelt offenses, and other HTA liquor license and commercial motor vehicle offenses. And in the month of September, we had no break and enters, therefore there was no safeguard offered to anyone. And that concludes the report for September, pending any questions.
Any questions, please? Mike?
Just wondered if our 40-kilometer-per-hour speed zone was of any significance for any increases or anything of notable nature.
From the comments we're receiving, it seems to have an impact. I think people are getting used to it. We've seen a reduction. We have laid some charges there and continue to do so to educate the public. But I think by and large, we've seen a reduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add something similar to that. The only thing I have noticed is, especially I noticed it the most on King Street West down by Katarina's. It seems to have gone up a little again as people have gotten used to it. And there's just I stop down there fairly regularly in the afternoons, later afternoons, and just seeing that as people are getting used to it, some are actually going back to the old ways. And Edward Street, as well as, of course, the ongoing one with people regularly doing around 60-ish there, just with that long stretch. And the complaints I still get from people internally in town, the usual suspects: Center Street, West Street, George, Hyde, and of course Boundary. And Boundary seems to be the big one now that people are referring on to me. But and Churchill, it's the same issues. I think it has gotten better. I would absolutely agree with that. But definitely there are some people that are kind of slipping back into old habits now, as they realize, like, we're not going to be pulling over every second car for doing 45. So it's just something we've got to keep an eye on to make sure that we keep people to sensible speeds.
Anything else? No? Then I have a recommendation that the police services report for September 2020 be accepted as presented. Have a vote on that? All those in favor?
I'll make the motion. I don't think we've got the motion made.
Okay.
Seconded.
All right. And then the motion passes.
You gotta call the vote though.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Would you two please put up your hands? Thank you. Politics is so tough. Let's move on now to old business. Anything under old business? Anything under new business? There are no media questions. What would
Oh,
we
just
like?
under old business really quick, I just had a chat with the CIO yesterday, just let everybody know that the traffic calming measures were discussed at council, a few weeks ago, Matt, and the follow-up report's coming later in November. Just so everybody's aware that's still on the way.
Okay. What would we like to put into the PSB announcements, public service announcements? Still a reminder about the 40 clicks? The speed limit?
That what Nancy just mentioned about mental health supports, maybe it's a good time to note what's available out there. Is that appropriate for something in an OPP report though? Your call on that one, Nancy, but seems like probably a good time as we're going into the winter now.
I can talk to Annie just to see what we can come up with as far as like as a media release, you're thinking?
Yeah, that usual public service that we have input in on, that would seem to be a good topic, just what you mentioned earlier, if that would be appropriate for such a release. But it's certainly good to let people know what services are available out there right now.
Sure, I can look into that further for sure.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else before we adjourn? No? Then I guess we'll just pick a date for November. Does anybody have any? What about the 26th of November?
Yep, that works for me.
Yeah, should be good. That's pretty much the usual time, I think, now, last Thursday of the month.
Okay. Well, it's recommended that this meeting adjourn to November 26th at 8:30 a.m. We have a vote on that, please? All those in favor?
I'll move it first.
Okay. Just want to cut the red tape. Moved
Not a lot
by
of choices.
Brett Todd, seconded by Mike Ostrander. And all those in favor? It passes. So it's recommended that the meeting adjourn to November 26th at 8:30 a.m.